Now remember, we said ASP.NET is a family. So within that family of technologies, there are these major ones that we're going to focus on. There are web forms, MVC or Model View Controller, and web pages. Let's consider first what ASP.NET web forms are. Clearly, the greatest maturity. Web forms have been around the longest within this family. There's an inheritance model, meaning that a page is an object, a control is an object, and everything inherits from one another to allow for extensibility. All controls inherit from control, and then you as a developer could even extend the controls yourself by inheriting from one or inheriting from a base class control and extending and creating your own. You also have a very nice designer, a toolbox where you can drag and drop controls that have been created, simplify your development environment within ASP.NET. When we're thinking about web forms, your primary tool is going to be Visual Studio. When you're thinking about, well, what kind of project or how would I get started, you could either get involved with web forms by creating a web application project or by creating a website. And again, you're going to see examples of both of those later on in the course with modules that focus specifically on each one. ASP.NET MVC, that is the Model View Controller. Now, where it differs is that it is very code intensive and now supports a Razor syntax. This is with regard to the HTML markup. Now, it also supports unit tests, and that's really why it's code intensive. What does it mean, code intensive? Couldn't we do code with web forms? Well, sure we could. But this is even much more of a discipline. And the reason for this is when web form developers create controls and tons of controls and put it in the designer, a lot of the logic can get tied up with that. It makes it very difficult to test or to have unit tests. So a really simplified view to this is to say, this is another technology family, MVC is, and one of its main objectives is to separate the code from the markup so that there can be independent tests done on that code. And the primary tool here again is going to be Visual Studio. So another family of technologies, very new, ASP.NET Web Pages. This focuses on a very simple page rendering. If you're going to pursue web pages, you can do this in either Web Matrix or Visual Studio. How does this one differ from MVC or web forms? The closest comparison would probably be ASP.NET Web Pages resemble web forms, especially if you were creating a website. The difference here, however, is that we're not really focusing on a designer, controls, dragging and dropping. We're still focusing on keeping everything in code.